Okay, campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties because it's cold out there today.
It's cold out there every day. What is this, Miami Beach?
This week on the show, it is time, once again, for what feels like the 1000th time for another one of our Council of Doof episodes. Matt, what are these episodes all about?
Once again, once a month, those individuals that donate to us on Patreon at the Council of Doof level will get to collectively decide on a movie for the community to consider for entrance into the canon. Scott and I, and maybe some guests, will meet, talk about the movie, and then present our case for why it should or should not be admitted.
But as always, we are leaving the final decision up to you, our listeners. So stick around, listen to our arguments, listen to how we vote, and then find the link in the show notes to go make your voice heard. Matt, what has the council brought to us this month?
This month, the council has put forth the 1993 film Groundhog Day.
Holy shit. This is a tall order. I don't often get nervous making this podcast anymore because we've been doing it for so long. But for whatever reason, sitting down to record to talk about this movie, I was kind of nervous going into this. This is a big movie. It's a lot of people's beloved movie, and I want to make sure we do it justice.
Yeah. Well, I think whenever I approach something that is as beloved as this, I just understand that we're just going to be able to take one cut at it, one angle, or maybe a few interesting things to say in there, but you can't really break down Groundhog Day. We don't talk about comedies very often. So that's going to be a fun challenge, actually.
Yeah. I mean, the problem I have with comedies is always the way I talk about it ends up being the way most people talk about comedies, which is just repeating the joke and then saying, wasn't that funny when they did that thing? I think I have some things to say this time about what exactly Bill Murray is doing in this movie and why it works so freaking well.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right, so we're going to talk all about Groundhog Day, and then we're going to wrap up this week's episode by talking about the big thing that happened last week. The problem with recording these episodes so early in the week is big news happens, and then it's a whole 2 weeks before we get to talk about them. Because last week, Matt, the Matrix sequel trailer dropped. The Matrix Resurrection, is that the name of it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we're gonna have to talk about this, Matt. So we're gonna spend some time at the very end of this episode discussing the trailer and discussing this upcoming Matrix sequel.
Sounds good.
So that's gonna be our show. Let's get right into it and talk about Groundhog Day.
It's Groundhog Day!
Groundhog time.
1,000 people freezing their butts off waiting to worship a rat.
Weatherman Phil Connors is spending the day in Puxatawney, Pennsylvania.
Phil? Ned Ryerson. I did the whistling belly button trick at the high school talent show.
Bing!
Bang!
But Phil's about to find out he's not just stuck in Puxatawney.
Will you be checking out today, Mr. Connors?
Chance of departure today, 100%.
He's stuck
It's Groundhog Day!
in Groundhog Day.
I'm reliving the same day over and over.
Matt, there's no way people don't know, but what is this movie all about?
A weatherman finds himself inexplicably living the same day over and over again.
This movie is written by Danny Rubin and Harold Ramis, directed by Harold Ramis, making it the second movie in as many months that our council has picked for us that was directed by Mr. Ramis.
Excellent.
Which is funny. It stars, of course, Bill Murray and Andy McDowell. And Matt, tell me how much you love Groundhog Day.
A lot. I've seen it a ton of times. It's not only is it one of those movies that used to be on TV all the time, but it's just such a well done movie. It's one of those rare comedies that really hits you in the heart as well. I was debating whether I thought this was Bill Murray's best movie, and while I think that one could argue that there's some other movie that might take that crown, I think this one has a good argument behind it, actually. I don't know, man. It's it's kind of a perfect movie. It's genre defining. One of my favorite movies is Edge of Tomorrow, and it's like yeah, that's basically everyone just says it's Groundhog Day with aliens.
Yeah, I mean that's the unique thing that this movie is in our culture is that it like the concept of time loop stories existed before this movie came out, but this movie set the standard, and every story about time loops from this movie on was either aping the structure of this movie or intentionally doing things different to be different from Groundhog Day, right?
Right.
And, which is quite remarkable when you think about it, actually, that's how impactful the story was. Like, there's a movie came out last year called Palm Springs that I absolutely loved, that is a Groundhog Day story, and it's both subverting and but still beholden to the frame of this movie. And you can't undersell how much of a big deal that is.
Right. It's funny because I will refer to like a situation or whatever as like a Groundhog Day situation, and not even think about this movie. It's just a word that means a time loop now.
It's also one of those things that like you forget. Like, I don't know. I've always found this thing fascinating where the things that happened immediately before my birth just feel like they were things that always existed. And this movie came out in 1993. I was 8 when this movie came out, but it seems crazy to me that it's only been 30 years, 28 years since this movie came out. Like this genre defining movie that just feels like this type of time loop story has always existed in this manner. And it just hasn't been that long in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, you're right. It does. It feels timeless. It doesn't feel like it came out in 1993 or 8 or whatever you just said.
Three.
It feels like it's been around forever. That's a perfect way of saying it. It's just, I think part of it is that it's like literally kind of unmoored in time.
Sure.
Like the character, but
yeah. I also, like you mentioned at the beginning that you have seen this movie so many times, and I have too. The interesting thing about it is as I was watching this movie, I don't know how many times I've actually seen the movie from the very start to the very end, because like you said, this movie played on TV so many times on so many different channels, and it's one of the movies where you will just be flipping channels, and if you see it's on, you'll watch it. Yeah. And so I like out of the hundreds of times I've probably seen this movie, how many times I've actually watched it from the first second to the last second is maybe like 3, maybe including this one. It's just one of those things where I just feel like you can jump in and catch it piecemeal. And I know this doesn't have anything to do with Groundhog Day specifically, but I was thinking about how that's not an experience that people will have anymore with any movies, because we don't watch TV the same way anymore. So like there's just not going to be the concept of jumping into a movie 20 minutes in and just rolling with it, or seeing pieces of movie. Like, either you're going to press play, and maybe the pieces of the movie you'll see is like the first 5 to 10 minutes, but not like the last 30 or something.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I think I was probably introduced to a lot of movies throughout my life because they were just on TV. Yeah. And you're just like, I guess this looks interesting. You know, it's in progress. You're missing important context, but you're just like, and you know, it's so weird to think that we used to consume things that way.
I know, it's so different, and it's non-repeatable. Like, we just, with all the streaming services, nobody watches things that way anymore.
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, but back to Groundhog Day itself. I guess let's start with Mr. Murray, who is, we were talking about this right before we started recording, I think definitively one of the best comedians that has ever lived. Definitively the best comedian ever, right? Like, I mean, I comedy is a lot of taste, but this man is brilliant. And we were talking about whether this is peak Murray, and sure, yes, let's say it. I think that the thing about Bill Murray is he's had so many phases in his career. This is definitely peak that phase of his career, Bill Murray.
Yeah, because I was thinking like Life Aquatic is one of my favorite movies also. Yeah. And that's a totally different Bill Murray, obviously.
Yeah, and I love I mean all his Wes Anderson dealings. Like, I love him in Rushmore. Right. I love him in Lost in Translation. Like, he's had so many different phases of his career and doing different things that I love them all. But I was really paying attention to him in this movie in a way that I don't think I ever have, where I was not paying attention to Phil the character, but paying attention to Bill Murray the performer. And there's a lot of things he's doing in this movie that I think are really, really smart, because there's so many different versions of himself that he's playing. Like, he's playing the asshole Phil from the beginning, but he's also forced to play made up versions of Phil. Like the parts that I really paid attention to this time around was when he was running through the motions of saying the lines he'd been saying over and over again as he's kind of stumbling his way through the conversation with Rita, trying to get things right. And he's playing a bad actor who's repeating lines like that he doesn't have his heart in very much. Like it's so like when he's talking about like when he says, yeah, it reminds me of Rome when the sun hits. Like the first time he says it, like it's definitely bullshit, but you can kind of believe it. And then each subsequent time he says it, he's putting just a little bit of a different affect on it that you can tell it's forced and he's not really into it anymore because he's just trying to yada yada through this to get to the next phase of the conversation.
Right. There's so much precision to that performance. I like the idea of, you can tell how good an actor is by how many levels of sort of layers rather that they can put into a performance. So there you've got the character of Phil trying to act like the kind of person who he thinks Rita wants. But we can see that it's fake and it's not really the way he normally behaves.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only complaint I might have about this movie is that Rita never she does in that she ends up slapping him every single time, but there's never a moment where he gives one of his line reads that sounds so fake that she's not like, oh, come on, Phil, this is bullshit. And I think part of that is just Bill Murray's inherent charm, which he is oozing out of this character. He's so charming, even when he's a total asshole.
Yeah, right. There's always something likable about him, and I think that's another thing that's important about the performance is he's such a jerk that it would be easy to turn against him. I mean, it's funny because this is one thing that it has in common with Edge of Tomorrow, where the character we meet at the start of the movie sucks, and the relentless grind of repeating the same day is actually what turns them into like a hero, basically, in both cases. There's a risk though that you just dislike the character and then you disengage from the movie emotionally. Which I don't, he comes up to the line of it though. Like, I think that's what's daring about the movie is, I don't think there was ever a risk that I wasn't going to like Tom Cruise's character, but he gets so like pushy and aggressive and manipulative, and it's the manipulation that is really kind of gross. And for some reason, I guess it's been a few years since I saw this movie, but watching it again this time, I was more repelled and actually didn't think certain things were funny anymore. I was like, it's just sick that you would like do this kind of mental assault on this woman to try to like game your way through her defenses, and it's so obviously fake and unhealthy. I don't know, I reacted to it a bit differently, and I felt repelled by it. And then of course his character has the learning experience of realizing that like that's not going to make him happy, that's not going to result in any kind of meaningful connection, and he has to basically improve as a person, really for its own sake, but also because then he'll be the kind of person who actually deserves her.
Yeah, I mean, I like that we see kind of two levels of it, because before he does it with Rita, he kind of warms up on the Nancy character, right? Where he's just like, I agree with you, the skeeviness of it when he like walks up to Nancy and is like, Nancy from Mrs. Whatever's 12th grade English class. Like, right. There is something inherently funny about the idea that if you're confident enough in something, someone will just be like, oh yeah, I remember you. But yeah, he's just lying to her and manipulating her into bed. And I mean, this is the only instance of this we see in the movie outside of what he's doing with Rita. But like, I don't know, you can assume he did it with many other people. I mean, there's that woman he takes to the movie after he steals the money. Who knows where he found that woman? I don't. The movie doesn't bother to tell you, but
yeah.
But no, I think you're right. Like the so much of this movie, a good chunk of the middle of this movie is his attempts to woo Rita by just manipulating her. And yeah, it is gross. It is really gross. And I think I still found parts of it funny. Like just the parts where he's obviously acting and obviously not caring about the certain things. But yeah, there is something really off-putting about the decision to that he made to just do that and to be committed to it. I think the one that is the most disturbing to me is he has the one day where he like gets her to his bedroom and then he blows it and she slaps him. And then like we immediately cut to them with the snowman again. And that just makes you feel gross, right? Because it's just like, ew, like you just went through all that thing and she rejected you for being terrible. And like your response is, okay, we're going to do it again, but I'll tweak it a little bit.
And the thing about that run is like it was authentic the first time, like making the snowman and, you know, the kids throwing snowballs at them. And then like they fell down on the snow together. Like he was definitely like using the information that he knew about her, but that was like an authentic experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the second time through, it's totally, he's no longer even like enjoying it. He's just like acting it out. And and that makes it feel totally different. But I mean, I think there's some really amazingly powerful and deep like themes here about like what sorts of like what is the right way to live your life, basically. Like I mean, you can let's just strip away the, you know, the genre conceit of it and be like, yeah, you could probably get a woman to sleep with you if you know, cheated and like you know, stalked her basically and did all sorts of like unethical things. You could probably like scam your way into bed, but like that would result in a very hollow sort of interaction, and it would, you know, it would expire at the end of that day basically, because then you can no longer keep up the charade that you've concocted. And it's and he has to learn the lesson of like, even if he I think at a certain point he realizes like, even if I win at this, you know, quote unquote win, what will that have gained me, right? And then eventually he realizes he needs to improve who he is.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I don't know, like I found the final day, like he gets her in the end, right? But like that seems so secondary to his goal for the day. Like the thing that I love is that he really doesn't interact with Rita in any kind of meaningful way until the very, very, very end of that day, where she's just become impressed with the person he is, not what he's trying to do to her, because he's busy doing other stuff. He's busy saving people and entertaining and being the center of the town. The thing that's so fascinating to me, that I think one of the core things that this movie is saying, is it's very easy. Like she asked the question, I thought you only came here once a year. How do all these people know you? And how are they all enamored by you? And like the easy answer to that question is, well, I've been spending a lot of time with them. But he really hasn't. He's been spending a lot of his time with them. Mm-hmm. All these people have just met him really for the first time in the last 8 to 10 hours. And I think one of the things this movie is saying is how impactful one action can be, how impactful one choice can be, one interaction, one, you know, saying something in a different way to a different person. I like the first guy that came up to him in the morning when he walks out of his room and says, "You going to see the Groundhog?" And like on the last day, he just talks to that person and like you see that guy with a smile on his face walking away. And that was 1 5-second interaction that causes you no grief at all, but possibly changed that man's life, or at least his day, right?
Right.
And I think that's one of the most powerful messages of this thing, is that you don't think that your actions, even small ones, can have that big of an influence on people, but they totally do.
Yeah. I actually really do think that's great. Like the idea that he presumably many times he has made sure that he was under a particular tree so that he could catch a kid falling out of the tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing that like either the universe is being reset or he's in some, it doesn't really matter. The metaphysics actually don't matter. It's just like, hey, you know what? I can spare this person suffering.
Right.
And it literally doesn't matter that they're going to forget it, because I will still have done that. Mm-hmm. And that it's funny because I don't think about Groundhog Day as being like influential on me in this way, but this is kind of like my philosophy actually is like just do good things for their own sake, so that, you know, spare people suffering when you can. It's its own, you know, for its own sake, and help people when you can for its own sake. And so
I remember we read that book, The First 15 Lies of Harry August, and I think that kind of approach to this same ethical dilemma a little bit more textually than this movie did, in that like one of the characters, the concept of the book is that the character lives an entire life, and then when he dies, he repeats the beginning of his life, and that's just keeps doing that. And one of the things he does in every life that he lives is he goes and kills a serial killer that's going to kill a bunch of women. And he does that every single time. Another character is like, why are you doing this? It doesn't matter. Like everything's going to be reset. You're going to die and you're going to go back to the beginning and everything's going to be reset. You're not accomplishing anything. And he's like, yes, you are, because you have stopped a certain amount of pain. You have prevented pain. Whether or not that pain will be reset or not is immaterial. And I think that's exactly what him choosing to save that kid every day is. Because, I mean, that's the thing is, he doesn't go into this final day of the final loop expecting this to be the final day of the final loop. Like, this is just a normal day for him now. This is just what he does every day now. He's lived in this place long enough. And I forget, like, I think a bunch of people have analyzed the shit out of this movie and determined it was like, I don't remember how much they said, but like 1,000 years or something ridiculous. Like judging by how long it takes you to become a master of all these different things. And they use all this calculus that we don't need to do. It's been a really fucking long time. Right. And this is just how he spends his day now, that he just does it. He's just helping people every day. He's just playing that piano at that party every day. He's just interacting with these people every day, saving those two people's marriage every day. These are just the things he does now. And there's no benefit to it for him. Like we start the character, he's a very egocentric, selfish character. And by the end, it's none of it is about him at all, because he doesn't even get to enjoy the long-term consequences of that.
Right. And I think it's all pretty clearly textually because of Rita's impact on him. Like he falls in love with her pretty much immediately. But then like as the loops progress, it goes from just being like, oh, she's like pretty, to being like, I just admire her selflessness and kindness and the kind of like naivete almost, which counteracts his cynicism, where he's like, I wish I could be more like that, actually. Like he's just a miserable person, actually. And then I think that's, the point where, they have the good time together, and he kind of has like a positive shift, and then he realizes like, well, I just need to be more like that. I just need to be more kind and take care of people. I mean, the idea that the whole sequence where he tries to save the old man.
Oh my God. I forgot that was in the movie.
I always forget about that. And it's funny because you can imagine, if they didn't have Bill Murray as the star of this movie, it would be interesting, because it probably wouldn't be as nearly as funny a movie, but it would still be a good movie, actually. Because it's actually an extremely solid story, even if you don't have all these, Bill Murray, like totally deadpan, sardonic zingers thrown throughout it. It's just stuff like that. It's just a great concept, and it's so well executed.
Yeah, I mean, and I found that like it's so heartbreaking, because I mean, obviously one of the lessons we've been talking about is this idea of how impactful you can be on people, right? But another is that sometimes you can't, like this idea that like you can't save this man, and there's nothing you can do at this point to save this man. He's going to die no matter what you do. He will die on this day every time, no matter what you do, whether you're kind to him in the morning or not. And I think that's an important part of, living life as well. I mean, you can stretch this out and make this as just one big metaphor for how you should live your life, right? That how you should interact with people. I'm not going to say you should live like there's no tomorrow, because that's cliche and terrible, but like you should live like you help people, not for any personal gain, but just because they deserve it. You should find time to do the things that you want. You should take advantage of the time to learn how to play an instrument, to read philosophy, to learn to ice sculpt if you want. Like, you have time in your life to do all these things. It just doesn't feel like it because you're so, mired in the day to day, and that you can't see the life around you. Like, that's the thing about Punxsutawney. And that's like that the end of the movie, the last line of this movie is, we should move here. A place that he hated at the beginning. Right. And he couldn't wait to get out of. It's a wonderful place that he just wasn't able to see because he wasn't looking. And but at the same time, sometimes you can't save everyone. Like that you try your best, you still can't save everyone, and you need to learn to reckon with that as well.
Yeah, right. Just find some kind of acceptance.
Yeah.
It really is just such a great script, because like
it's so good
from the very beginning. He's so unsatisfied with everything. He's gonna complain about the hotel. He's gonna complain they don't have a cappuccino. Just everything is complaining, and everything is not good enough, and Punxsutawney sucks, and he's like, it's just a perfect character to say, like, okay, you have to learn to just appreciate just the basic things about existence, because it's not like you're going to be happy if you had the cappuccino. You'd complain about the cappuccino if you had the cappuccino anyway.
Yeah. Well, and everyone is so fucking accommodating to him, and he doesn't appreciate it. Like like when he gets to the hotel and he sees like, I'm not staying here. And she's like, no, you're not. I booked you a bed and breakfast because I knew you wouldn't want to. And like, that's so nice. It's so nice to do that for him. And he can't realize it. And like his complaining about having to come here and do this coverage, his report on the Groundhog is 30 seconds long. It's a 30-second spot. You have to drive out to the country. You have to stay at a bed and breakfast. You got to wake up a little earlier than you might be normally do, record a 30-second spot, and then go home. What the fuck are you complaining about? This is the easiest job in the world.
I mean, I've never had a job like that, but don't you kind of imagine that stuff like that is the reason why you would want to be a weatherman in the first place?
You would think so. Yeah. I mean, like that. It's interesting. We don't get any idea from Phil why he wanted to be a weatherman in the first place, do we? Maybe I'm misremembering, but I don't remember anything
I don't think
like
that. I think it's just a character trait.
It's just an extension of his ego as well, that like he gets to be the center of attention. Everyone's looking at him. And as part of his job, because he's standing in front of a blue screen, he has to be looking at himself constantly too, to know where to put his hands and everything.
And I mean, also, I think there's the fun element of like, you know, you're sitting there crafting this movie and you're like, all right, what should our character's profession be? He's a guy who,
he's a guy named Phil that predicts the weather. Yeah.
And he always knows what's going to happen next. What's a good career for a person who makes predictions and always knows what's going to happen next? A weatherman. But wouldn't it be funny if the first thing he does in the movie is he's totally wrong about a storm?
Totally wrong. Yeah.
Like it's just a perfectly clever thing to put on this character.
100%. Okay, let's talk about Andie MacDowell for a little bit.
Sure.
I love her, and I don't know where she went. But like, she was so big in the 90s. She was so big. She was everywhere in the 90s. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Multiplicity.
Yeah.
Where she was the wife in that as well. And God, she's so good in these. She's so good in these roles. And I really think one of the things that's so good about this movie is there's a version of this movie where she is just the love interest, right? And that's all she is. But it gives her this rich personality and these wants and needs, and who she is, as you already have said, becomes center to what the movie is. And I think Andie MacDowell plays that character with such this kind of like, she's so much the opposite of him, right? Like, she's excited by everything. She's just thrilled to be there. She's like, and Andie MacDowell plays it with such optimistic joy that you can't help but be sucked into that. And then it allows you to roll your eyes at Phil a little bit.
Yeah. I think the interplay of those two actors is like what makes the movie the best is, you know, her, and it's subtle. It's not over the top, but like her reacting to his cynicism with just like disappointment, and him reacting to her, what he perceives to be naivete, with a sort of combination of like eye rolling, but also like kind of jealousy. Like, I wish I could see the world the way she does, because clearly she's happier than I am. And there's so many great interactions. Like, I think, so this is one thing I wanted to talk about just for a second, is just like the idea that I think this movie just has gotten funny as I've gotten older. And the reason is because I think I think as you get older, you just get better at reading nuance in like voice and facial expression and so forth. Just like it's a thing you practice doing. And so it makes sense that you get better at it over time. And so this movie's just gotten funnier to me because so much of it is these, Bill Murray and Andy McDowell also, like, fencing basically in conversations where they're sort of trying to like outflank each other's defenses. Like he's trying to get her to like admit that Punxsutawney sucks or whatever, and she's trying to get him to lighten up.
Yeah.
But like they're being hilarious, and Bill Murray's being deadpan, and she, like, I don't know, like there's just so many. It's so dense and precise all the time.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about her character so much is Bill Murray is such a jerk to her, and she's never mean back. Like that's, I think, the purpose of the cameraman character is to basically get to voice everything that anyone would voice to Phil's behavior, the Chris Elliott character. And so that's like his whole purpose, because Rita is never that mouthpiece, right? She's like, she's always like trying to pull him out of his shell or pull him out of his cynicism and make him a better person. And so she never, like, it is only when she is pushed really, really far that she lashes out. But like, she's so patient with him, and like saintly patient with him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right. It is important to have the cameraman character to reveal like actually he is a jerk. She's just an extremely patient person, but we're seeing from the cameraman, like this is an indication of who this guy really is. Like, and he's great too. Like my favorite line of his is when they're in the morgue identifying the body, and he's like, yeah, he was a really nice guy. I really, really liked him.
You can tell it's such bullshit.
Yeah. He just doesn't care at all that he's dead.
Yeah. And then he does a gesture like, yeah, go ahead and cover him. We're down here. Yeah.
Right.
He's really, really great. And I think he serves as, like, we don't get to see a lot of his interaction with people at his work. Like, we see the news anchor that clearly hates him, and then we see the backup weather guy that clearly is obsessed with him and loves him, and he treats them both equally terribly. So like, we just get this image that everyone at his office fucking hates him. Like, nobody likes this guy at all. He has no friends. Like, he doesn't have any, like, there's no one to reach out to, right? Rita is it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just...
I think you were talking about the script, and I think one of the things we need to at least state for the record here, it's because we've been inundated with this type of movie for the past 28 years. It seems very obvious what the structure of the film is, right? But it's not, because it was kind of writing it for the first time. Like this idea that, like, you go through the first day all the way through, and then you do the second day, which is confusion, and then the third day is really when what's happening sinks in, and then you go through this bout of I can do whatever I want, hooray, and then you go through this bout of depression, and then you come out on the other side of it. Like, all these things seem obvious in retrospect as the structure of what a time loop movie would look like, but someone had to establish that first, and this movie did that.
Yeah, it did it like with perfect pacing and understanding of where the stakes are in a story that's actually almost impossible to have stakes, because everything is reset every time. And there's not an alien that's trying to take over the earth, so it's like it really is interesting, because I can't actually off the top of my head say what the stakes are. I mean, I guess the stakes are like, is he going to figure out how to get out of this? And also, to a lesser extent, I think, like, is he going to end up with Rita? Although for like the first half of the movie, you don't even really want that, because you kind of dislike him. No, I
mean, I think it's the genius of the movie is that they didn't even bother to try to explain why this happened. Like there's no kind of exploration of like what's happening. How is he caught into this thing? Like, I think most other Groundhog Day-esque films from this point on have like put structural borders on that to kind of explain what happened. Like Edge of Tomorrow did it. That movie I was talking about, Palm Springs, did it. There's an explanation for how they get stuck, and that's part of the way to get unstuck. But none of that's in this movie. There's no, like, we just, and they don't even really directly, like, it's establishing the trope, so it can't be trope savvy, right? Where like Bill Murray can't go, I'm obviously stuck in this thing. I need to become a better person. Like in every version of this movie, like Happy Death Day, it's all the character goes, oh, okay, I need to become a better person. So that's what I need to do. Okay, how do I do that? This movie can't do that. And so it's just has this happening kind of unremarked upon in the background. Like we see him slowly become a better person. We see him like talk to Larry, the camera guy, for the first time ever, and like ask him if he has any children, talk to him. And we see that transition from that one little act of kindness of getting him coffee and actually having a conversation to him where him starting to help other people, talk to other people, be interested in what other people have to say. And that carries on and on and on. And then we see he's rewarded at the end, but no one ever like zooms in and says, congratulations, Phil, you have passed the test. Yeah. No more winter.
Yeah, right. Which is perfect. I think there was originally some frame put around this in the script, in the original script, which was, thank God that was not included. Like, yeah, I don't know how it was something crazy. I don't remember what it was. I've actually intentionally wiped it from my mind.
I think at some point you just need to realize that that's just not necessary. Yeah. I mean, the other thing I read is that an early version of the script had the movie start with him stuck in the loop already. And we just live a normal day with him where he knows he's in a loop, but we don't yet. And they play with that. I think the movie that I've been referencing several times, Palm Springs, which you should really watch, by the way, it's on Hulu. Go watch it. Mm-hmm. That they use that same conceit where like the first time we see the loop, we don't understand that this guy definitely knows he's in a loop. And so it's just like, man, this guy's behaving very strangely. I think that's a clever conceit, but I'm so glad they didn't do that here because we need to see what a normal day looked like for him before all this happened. We needed to see that.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so because fundamentally this is a like man versus himself type of story. Mm-hmm. And which it has to be because the world can't change. There is no antagonist. It has to be, if you're going to get out of this, it's going to be through conquering yourself because you literally can't conquer anything else. No matter what you do, it's going to reset. And in fact, it's not that he breaks out of the loop because he, gets Rita. It's that he breaks out of the loop because he's become a person who Rita would like. Yeah. Which is self-oriented. So I think that was the thing that makes the movie work is realizing that that's what the movie is. It's purgatory, which, in the sense of purging, purifying himself through repetition.
And I think you're right. I think like it'd be very easy to write off the end of the movie as, oh, he gets the girl and that's how he breaks out of the loop. But we know that that's not true because there was an earlier loop where she fell asleep on his bed with him just like this time. And she was gone in the morning and it was the same day again. I think that the thing that I noticed the first time that I don't think I've ever noticed before, Matt, is they didn't hook up. Yeah. Like there's a really throwaway line in the morning of February 3rd where she says something to the effect of like, man, where was all like, he's like happy and like kissing on her and everything. And she's like, where was all this last night? Like you just went right to bed. Right. And I don't think I had ever caught that before. And that's so important because like, it wasn't about trying to get in her pants because he could have and chose not to. And why he said is like, it was the end of a very long day, which is funny because it's playing off of the fact that he's been in this day for forever, but also he had bigger things to worry about in the day than getting in her pants.
Yeah. I mean, he had been running around saving people's lives all day. He was probably just physically exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. Really great touch that I for whatever reason did not catch on until this rewatch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I've caught it before, but I agree. That's, it's so great. God.
We just got to talk about all the other wonderful things in this movie. Stephen Tobolowsky as the life insurance salesman. Uh-huh. Ned?
Yeah. Right.
The Ned and then just decking him will always make me laugh. Like, it's just so good.
Well, that's the clever thing about the movie is it allows you to have all these little bits that then come back and you're like, oh, okay, what's it going to do? Well, okay, the next time he sees him, he hugs him.
He creeps him out.
He creeps him out, and it's like just fun new riffs on each of these situations of like, okay, how are we gonna, he goes to the piano teacher's house, and the first joke is like he's just gonna pay her a ridiculous sum of money. The second joke is he's been coming, every day, and she's highly confused about how he can be the And
you sure this is your first lesson? Yeah.
All these side characters that we can use to sort of tell little side stories is what we're doing. You have a ton of little side stories going on, and you just dip in and out of them, and they're actually all. This strikes me as a very Harold Ramis thing to do, actually, to have side characters who are incredibly memorable, even though they have such a tiny amount of screen time. Like there's something he does where it's like a combination of casting and the detail put into like how they're presented, and it's just like, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, but I could tell you everything about the piano teacher side character, or the man who he saves from choking. Like these are they're like precisely selected and created to be memorable so that he can return to them repeatedly and have it kind of work that way.
Yeah, or the two drunk guys that he has that night with, that he learns about, like that, wanted to do more with their lives and just never did. Like there's so many, like the husband and wife character who are supposed to get married later that day, but she's having second thoughts. The husband, who by the way is played by Michael Shannon, which is another thing I didn't realize until this viewing, where I was like, wait a minute, is that Michael Shannon? And then I went and looked on IMDb, and sure enough, it's like one of his first roles is this bit part in this movie.
It's funny because he's such a kid, and
he looks so young.
You think of Michael Shannon as like this grizzled, like hard ass, and he's just he's just a kid in this movie.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Harold Ramis really succeeds at fleshing out this town and making all these people feel real. And like he allows you to enjoy that in the final day, right? Like, because another fun thing is like kind of imagining watching this movie for the first time, where you don't actually realize it's the final day. Like you don't know that yet, but yet we're kind of getting to see all the different people that he's interacted with over the course of the movie. Like even Nancy Ryerson makes a return as the woman, like obviously spurning any type of flirtation from Larry, which is just delightful.
Yeah. Right. And now, and she wants him just because he's awesome now. It's not because he's pursuing her or anything.
Yeah. And he's not, like he could, he totally could get her, but he's not interested in it anymore.
Yeah.
God, such good stuff, man. Such good stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think we've successfully avoided, wasn't it funny when Bill Murray said this, but wasn't it funny when Bill Murray said all those things?
It was. I do want to talk about just that for a second. Just like so many bits where it's not even a joke, right? It's just like he just says it perfectly with the perfect expression. Like I don't normally laugh out loud when I'm watching movies by myself, but there's so many moments where I laughed while watching this, like stuff. And like a perfect example is when Rita says something about like how delightful all the people of Punxsutawney are being, and he just goes, yeah, they're hicks, Rita. And just like the delivery and the sneer on his face, it's just like I just burst out laughing. And it's like, that's not even that funny, just like if you say it, right? Which is true of a lot of comedy, which is why the humor style of the 18-year-old who just repeats lines from movies is so
terrible.
Don't do that, please. But that he's just a master of that, of like delivering things in the perfect way.
It is. And I think one of the things that makes this movie so inherently rewatchable is that he's doing that at like 900 miles an hour. And like sometimes you miss some of them because it's going so fast, and like every one of his more dry, witty phrases take a couple beats for you to go, oh, wait a minute. But we've already moved on to something else. And so like, this is why this is just a joy to watch, because you catch jokes. Like, like the old thing with a comedy where you're like laughing at one punchline, and so you miss the second because you're laughing too hard. I felt that a lot with this movie, where Bill Murray is like so fascinating because he has so much energy at showing zero energy. Like it's one of those things. He comes off as so indifferent and casual in how he performs, but like you can just tell there's so much effort behind that. There's so much effort to get to that place and to tell jokes in that way and to hone your craft specifically like that. It's sneakily complicated, and he's a master at it.
Yeah. Right. That's the thing. I mean, just to go back to the very top of the episode when we were talking about, is he the greatest, comedian of all time? It's like, well, I don't even know if I've ever seen his stand up or if he has a stand up routine, but I don't, do you even know? I've never seen a Bill Murray stand up act.
I don't think I have,
but as a comic actor, like that's his forte, is just that wavelength, that energy, that just like sardonic, detached, sarcasm, which he wields better than anyone in the world. Yes, and it's like, I don't know, like you can't compare him with someone like Jim Carrey. They're like different creatures, right?
No, yeah.
And like you can't even be like who's better. It's like they're doing different things. We call it both of them comedy, and they're both trying to make you laugh, but their toolkits are totally different. And
I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot today because today, as we're recording this, it was when Norm Macdonald passed away from cancer. And he is one of my favorite comedians. He's one of the funniest people in the world. But his comedy and what he is doing and what he is trying to do is so different from Bill Murray, that trying to like compare them to each other, it seems just like a ridiculous exercise. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Right. And exactly.
But I even think like in your Jim Carrey comparison, like they're closer to each other than he is to like Jim Carrey. So like comedy is so broad and there's so many different facets of it that it is a thing that I do not feel comfortable talking about, but is a thing that does fascinate me. Like, how does this work? How is this stuff so funny? Like, we were talking yesterday after we finished recording about the show, I Think You Should Leave. Which is a Tim Robinson comedy special on Netflix. And his style of comedy is so funny, and my wife hates it. Like she hates it. Like I turn on this thing and I'm like laughing so hard I can't breathe. And she's just like, this is terrible. This is not funny at all. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. And it's just like, it's comedy fascinates me.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I sometimes think that like I should try to do an open mic or something, just, and I know it would be terrible. Like this isn't some delusion that I would be good at it, but like, I think it would be a fun experience to like try to write jokes and then try to deliver them, because real comedians make it look easy. Like they make it look like they're just,
just talking,
just like, I'm just talking off the cuff about some observations about society that I have. And it's like, no, this is a scripted and finely tuned performance, especially if you're seeing it on TV. It's been practiced 1,000 times. And, probably the first few times they tried it, they didn't necessarily know how that joke was going to work out, or even if it was funny. Like, that's the thing, is even comedians who are professionals don't always know if what they're doing is funny.
Yeah, I mean, the way they test that is by just going out and giving the joke. And if it bombs, okay, we'll just not do that one. Yeah. Or we can tweak it or tool it. Yeah, it is one of those things where every single person that goes to a comedy special or that likes comedy has at some point in their life said, I could probably do that.
Right.
And you're all wrong. Right. All of you are wrong. It's one of the hardest jobs there is.
Yeah. No, it would be. I mean, it would actually. It's the sort of thing where they're also making it look fun, and it's like I don't know if that's as fun as it looks, because you're performing the same routine over and over, and you're just making it look like you are having a good time.
Yeah, I feel like that would get, like, I've thought about that before, like even like concerts, like where bands, like you're on a world tour and you're playing the same set every night, day in and day out. Like you really got to love what you do to be able to do that. Like at least what we do, we're talking about different things every week. Right. But imagine we had to talk about Groundhog Day every week forever.
Yeah. Spend a good hour or two playing the same songs that for some of these bands, songs that you wrote like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
You're like, well, time to play this song again that I'm just bored of now. And it's a shame that everyone likes this song instead of the new songs that I'm writing, because this is the oldie that they grew up with.
Yeah. I think it's true of any kind of performance, whether it be, comedy, music, even like sports playing. The part that the observer sees is the tip of the iceberg that goes into what is going on there. And I think in comedy, that iceberg is particularly well hidden. And so people just think it's not that big of a deal. But no, it's a lot of work these people do. And Bill Murray is absolutely a master of it. My gosh.
Yeah, I guess that's the amazing thing about the movies is that, like, yeah, I mean, these are actually, this is a question I came up with while watching the movie is Harold Ramis the kind of director who does a lot of takes where he lets the actors ad lib and play around? Do you know about this? Because I don't.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it depends on the movie, but like, I'm pretty sure Caddyshack is a movie like notoriously known for being insane improv-y type of movie where they were just like letting the actors like do whatever they want. I think everyone he worked with, like Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, are pretty like these are all Second City people, that were heavy improvists. So I think there's always going to be some improv in these movies. But I feel like a movie like Groundhog Day is like by design so structured that I think it, out of all of these, I'm looking at, is one of the few ones that just probably didn't have that much room for a lot of improv.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I'm just imagining again, I don't know this, but like, the scene where he goes down and talks to the bed and breakfast proprietress, and she's sort of starstruck by him. Like, you can imagine that he did that scene a whole bunch of times and tried different riffs with her always saying the same lines, because that's kind of the fun thing about the Groundhog Day premise is, especially that scene, like she's going to say the same reaction. She's going to say the same lines, and he's going to sort of play around within that framework, which strikes me as a place where you could throw some improv around.
Yeah, I think you're right. I know I know for a fact that like his interactions with Stephen Tobolowsky, some of that was improv, because I think the line, I don't know where you're going, but could you cancel it and come with me, to make him really uncomfortable, that was an improv Bill Murray line. I do know that. So I don't know. I think there's probably a fair mix of it, but I do think like a lot of the core of the script is the structure of the film. And so they couldn't do too much in that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, but some of it just feels so perfect that I'm almost like that just had to be in the moment. I don't know.
Have you ever, like, I'm about to get really weird, but have you ever, like, every time I watch one of these Groundhog Day movies, one of the things that always pops into my head is when I'm watching a person repeat the same line every day, no matter what. I'm like, that's weird, right? Like, how does that work? Like, it gets into your whole discussion of free will and like, what is making this person say that thing every time? Like, even when the person that you're about to say it to comes up to you with a different look on their face, they're dressed differently, they're clearly disheveled, they're different from the first time, and yet you say the same thing to them. Like, that always like sticks in my brain, and I'm like, that's fascinating.
Well,
like,
sure. I mean, I think that's just a kind of funny conceit that a person would keep saying the same things even after they've gotten such a weird reaction that in reality they'd be like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah, but chase me down this path of deterministic thinking that we're programmed almost in some ways to say the same things. Like, what I find that really, really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I like this idea that if you go through the same situation a couple times, then you'll just know how everybody's going to react. Yeah, and because people are, I think, predictable in those ways. I mean, this is the worst thing about me, is that I will be having a conversation with a friend and realize that I've already told them this thing that I'm saying, probably using the same words. And I'm just like, oh God, like, that's so horrible. Like, that's like, it makes me look like rude. Like, I don't like I'm not paying attention to my conversations with them because I don't remember what I've told them before.
And you're like mid-story, and you're like, when you realize this, and you're like, should I bail? Because I know they know this, and they're just being nice to me.
Right.
Yeah, God, I hate that.
Yeah, but every time that happens to me, or even when I'm telling a story like to different people, I'll realize that I've entered into a very Groundhog Day like pattern of the way I'm sort of executing the same program again.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I have that program until I begin telling the story.
Sure. Because it's not as if the world is just resetting and people are free to go on their own deterministic paths, right? Like let's say he woke up 10,000 times, and the guys on the radio said the same words all 10,000 times. Like they did the same intro, and every single time. And you're like, even without any outside influence, wouldn't just the randomness of human nature mean that like one of those times they would say something different, or they would slip a line, or they would, flub something, or someone would have an improv that they decided to go chase down. But that's not exactly what's happening here, right? It's the world is frozen in what it is, and he's just around it.
Yeah, right. I mean, if we get into like the physics of randomness, then maybe they would say something different just because of randomness. But I think that we're meant to just see this as a world where everything is going to unfold exactly the same way, from the standard, from the initial conditions that that happen at 6 a.m. That whatever the position and velocity of all particles at 6 a.m. is reset perfectly, and thus all of the vectors evolve in the same way, except for what Bill Murray does. So, but
also like the Groundhog Day guy chokes on his steak at lunchtime, right? And without Bill Murray dies, except for the one where he steals the groundhog, because presumably the guy isn't going to go to lunch.
True.
So he's not going to choke on his. There's so much stuff here. We could go crazy with it.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think everything that he directly touches is altered, and by the last cycle, he seems to have just like changed the whole town.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, like it's just a different. Everybody loves him. Everybody's gathered around. I love that bit where everybody's gathered around him with microphones in his face as he's giving the speech.
Yeah, we don't like why is that?
Yeah, you're like, how did we get here? It's just to show you like he's just exuding an aura of like wisdom and mastery at this point.
Yeah.
I think basically.
I think the last thing I want to talk to you about is the brief moments in the movie where we see the existence of this place beyond Phil, right? Like, so Phil is dead, and we have a whole scene where Phil is dead, and we have characters looking at his corpse. And so it's almost as if to say, in the world of this movie, that life continues until 6 a.m., regardless of Phil's existence in it, and then resets back to 6 a.m., which is pretty fascinating when you think about it.
That is pretty funny, actually.
Because it's not like he just, I mean, in his perspective, he probably just wakes up again and it's the morning. But like, we definitely see that the world continues.
Yeah, no, this is that I've never thought about that explicitly. And now I'm thinking about the part in Edge of Tomorrow when he tries to roll away from the other soldiers doing push-ups, and he rolls under the wheels of a car, which crush him. And then Bill Paxton walks over and goes, "What the hell were you thinking?" which probably implies Tom Cruise was still alive at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just
because I think in the structure of that film, like the day literally resets the second he dies. Like that's the function of that technology. Exactly. So yeah, he's probably not quite passed away. But in this world, it seems the day just continues till 6.
Yeah.
And, I also think like it is interesting. Like the movie, like this is a very funny movie, but it takes time to do the suicide parts, right? Like, and we see only a handful of his attempts, but we understand that like he's tried every possible way to kill himself. And like I think that one of the lines that was really impactful to me was like, "I've killed myself so many times I don't even exist anymore," which is like that's a really heavy line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jesus movie.
That's I think the repeatedly trying to kill himself thing is one of those things that was actually funnier to me when I was younger, because suicide was a purely abstract thing that I had no, understanding of, and now it's like, oh, he's extremely depressed.
Yeah.
Like he actually, he's not killing, like I think maybe I didn't even parse it correctly when I was younger, because he's not killing himself in the hopes of breaking out of the loop. He just wants to be dead. He would rather be dead than be continuing to be in the loop and continuing to be in Punxsutawney.
And again, it's the type of thing where, like, knowing how these movies work, knowing the structure of the Groundhog Day thing, it doesn't seem like it's as big of a deal to get to the point where you're like, okay, I've tried everything. The only thing I have left is killing myself. And so either I'm going to wake up and it's going to be 6 a.m. again, or I'm just going to die, and I'm cool with that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. There's definitely a few things that hit heavier than previous viewings. And because I think it has been a few years since this. You're not going to just catch the movie randomly on TV anymore. You have to sit down and watch it on purpose.
I know. Like, I really don't think the opening scene where, like, he's doing the weather in Pittsburgh is a scene that I've seen more than like 2 times. I really don't think so. For whatever reason, I'd always caught this movie like 20 minutes in.
Yeah, entirely possible. I mean, I was noticing things about this sequence where they're driving into Punxsutawney, and there's like a particularly like relatively loudly mixed kind of upbeat song over the part where they're driving into Punxsutawney, and I was like, Gandalf meme of I have no memory of this at all. Like, yeah, I'm sure I've seen it, but didn't stick.
I think part of that is probably just because that's like the thing that every movie does, like the travel music scene where you just do helicopter shots of a car driving through various locales to symbolize the movement across time and space. And it, like, it's a necessary thing that movies need to do. And so they always just kind of yada over it. Like, you start paying attention to this and you see that like every movie does it. It's like, okay, helicopter shot, car crossing bridge, music, happy music playing, travel scene. Like, it's just everywhere. And so it's very forgettable.
Yeah, that's true. If anything is going to be forgettable, it's going to be that sequence.
Yeah.
I guess we can't all be Edgar Wright.
Edgar Wright is who you're thinking of. Yeah. Yeah, he's the only one that does cool travel transition scenes.
Yeah.
The only one.
The only director. Yeah.
No other ones. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about Groundhog Day?
Nope. If people haven't seen Groundhog Day, I'd be fascinated to hear what people's experience watching Groundhog Day is, for the first time. It's probably one of those things where you've seen so many things that were influenced by it that you might not understand what's great about it. But I don't actually think that there's a risk that you won't like it, because it's just so funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so funny. It's just so well written and pleasurable across the board. Mm-hmm. It's just fantastic movie. We're going to move on to the vote now, but this is really just, I think, a foregone conclusion of both our perspectives. This is an absolute yes for me. I can't imagine a list of the best movies without this movie on it. It seems insane to me. It's culturally important. It's got the best version of Bill Murray. I was looking at Harold Ramis. Like, is this peak Ramis? I think it is. At least from a directorial standpoint, this has got to be peak Harold Ramis.
It seems like the most kind of serious and impactful film that he made. Yeah. I mean, he made a lot of films that you're like, yeah, that's a great funny movie, but it's like, yeah, but we don't really mean great in the same way that we mean like belongs on a list of best movies of all time great.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, like, I like Caddyshack, but I've never been like a huge Caddyshack person. I think National Lampoon's Vacation is a really, really good movie, and you could maybe get me to argue whether that's better than Groundhog Day. I don't know exactly how it would land on that, but if this isn't peak Ramis, it's like right like the step before you get up on the peak.
Yeah, in terms of being a director, I mean, he didn't direct Ghostbusters. That would be another thing that belongs on a lot of lists. Yeah, but no, I mean, I agree. Actually, this is probably the best Harold Ramis movie. Yeah.
Cool. Well, that's an easy decision then. You're going to vote yes, I'm guessing?
I am going to vote yes.
I would be absolutely shocked if this did not win our listener poll. But listeners, you still have to go through the effort of actually pressing yes and or no. So please check out the link in the show notes and make your voice heard. And as always, yes or no, let us know why. Let us know what you think about this movie. Let us know why you're voting the way you are. You can do it in the comments of the poll itself. You can send us an email at doofmedia@gmail.com. Or you can, just... Reddit. There's Reddit too. I was like, I got myself in a corner. I was like, wait, what other ways are there?
Yeah, surely there are ways.
But yeah, let us know. This is one I'm really curious about, especially if you happen to be voting no.
Yeah, me too.
Doof. All right, Matt, let's talk about The Matrix. So I need to get your opinions on this trailer, Matt. What did you think of The Matrix Ressurections trailer?
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. It could be good. It could be not so good. It's always hard to tell from a trailer. I mean, it's fun to react to trailers and get hype and everything, but I guess I'll say that like there are things in the trailer that make me worried, and then there are things in the trailer that make me excited, and we can talk about those things separately, perhaps. But I don't know. What was your reaction to this trailer?
I was really excited.
Okay.
I was really pumped about this trailer.
Good.
This worked. I think, when Jefferson Airplane's White Rabbit starts playing, that's when I knew I was in. Like for whatever reason, I was just like, oh, okay, I'm here. I'm here for this. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things when you really look and study this trailer, as of course I've done because I'm an insane person. There's a lot that they're very quickly trying to yada past. I think is going to be big important things in the movie. Like there are at least 2 shots where the original Matrix is playing on a screen within the movie.
Uh-huh.
I don't know exactly how that's going to work. Is it going to be like an architect version of like, here's your experiences from before, or in this world is the Matrix a movie that exists in this world? I don't know. I do have, especially with the name Resurrections, I do have the feeling that this is going to be a very meta movie that is going to handle and directly confront the legacy of not just the Matrix as a thing, but the Matrix as a cultural property and a movie in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're doing a lot of visual things that are obviously supposed to be reminiscent of the Matrix, but they're also doing a lot of things in the trailer where there are things that they couldn't have done in 1999, right? Mm-hmm. And they probably couldn't have done with the sequels either, just in terms of being cool action stuff, and which is part of the lineage of the Matrix in that it is action cinema using cutting edge technology.
Yeah.
But then I think the stuff that excites me about the trailer the most is like these scenes we get where Neo is like being weird and like pressing his face into a mirror because they're giving him like psychiatric medication and telling him that he has a mental illness because he thinks he's in the Matrix or something. That's what I'm excited about. I mean, I'm sure the action is going to be great. It takes a lot to get me excited about action these days, honestly. It's more just like, what are we doing with these characters? Because because I feel a lot of you know me. I love the Matrix. I still feel like a lack of closure about the end of the Matrix trilogy, in the sense that it is sort of an almost intentional leaving things open, right? Like, remember that last scene? It's like Trinity dies depressingly, Neo dies depressingly, and then the architect and the Oracle are basically like, what's going to happen now? And the architect's like, I don't know, and then walks away. And you're like, what? That's the end? And so I would love to see some more satisfying closure for these kind of, these characters who I care about.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because that's the big question: is why is Neo alive still? Because he was definitely dead. I mean, one of the things that we notice almost immediately at the opening of the trailer is the Matrix is the wrong color. It is not the green hued color that is the Matrix in the first one, right? So so you asked the question, is this even the Matrix? I will say that the color scheme most closely matches what the Matrix, quote unquote, looked like at the very end of the third movie, right? I think that is almost like if you put the color schemes of those two shots against each other, they almost look exactly the same, which indicates that like we are in the version of the Matrix that was created post Neo sacrifice. And why Neo is there, why Trinity is there, I don't know.
Right.
Why Morpheus is there, played by a person that does not look like Morpheus, I don't know. But I'm into it. I'm really into it. It's really interesting because the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer came out and became like the most popular trailer of all time. It was like most downloaded, most watched. And I watched that trailer and I was like, I'm not that excited about this movie. So I felt weird. I felt like I was disconnected from the cultural conversation. And then this thing came out and the response has been overwhelmingly positive. And I'm totally there. I'm totally there. Everything that this is doing, I think there's a lot of really interesting things in this. They're obviously leaning hard into the red versus blue color scheme. If you look at the trailer, like characters are draped in those colors. They're draped in the reds and the blues. Like I think Neil Patrick Harris is wearing eyeglasses that are like blue plastic frames, which is just very, very distinctive. And also Neil Patrick Harris is in this movie, which is exciting. So is Jonathan Groff. He's in this movie. There's a lot of people in this movie actually. And I don't know. I'm really excited and I'm really interested to see what they're going to do here. I mean, I think the thing we should say is that this is Lana Wachowski by herself, right? Lily is not working on this movie at all. And I think they actually asked Lily recently why she was not involved in this, and she was just like, I was just really tired and I don't want to do that. It's like she said, like, yeah, Lana came up with this idea for a Matrix movie, and I said, oh, that's really cool. I've moved on from that part of my life and I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't know, like I obviously love both these directors. I think they're fantastic. We did a whole series on them, and I love when they work together, and I'm curious to see what Lana Wachowski does here on her own.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad you're excited. I think I'm excited too. I feel, I guess what it is especially the time that you're asking me at a bad time, because literally yesterday, I was like, okay, I let my kids watch The Matrix 1 and they loved it. They actually just loved it as much as I wanted them to, which was very gratifying. This was a while ago. And then I let some time pass, and then I was like, should I show them the second Matrix? Like, it's just not even comparable. So yesterday I started to show them the Matrix 2. And like, even I, while watching with them, was like, this sucks. like this is just nothing. Like, there's just nothing here to grab onto. They're bored, I'm bored, and I like turned it off and we did something else. And I'm like, that the second and third Matrix movies are so disappointing. Even if we did whole podcasts on these movies, they were trying to do something interesting. The movies just don't work. I really hope that that's not what this movie is too, is what I'll say.
Yeah, I respect ambition so much that like one of the interesting things that I think that happened in the wake of this trailer is I've been seeing a lot of conversation on the internet relitigating the Matrix sequels, and the general consensus seems to be incredibly positive that people have kind of decided that they really like these movies, especially the second one. I think the third one is still like universally not enjoyed very much, but people are really, really positive on the second one. And having just watched them and studied them for our episode a couple years ago now, somehow it's been 2 years since we did that, but they're not good movies.
They're not.
I appreciate what they're trying to do, and I love many parts of them, and I love the Wachowskis as directors, and I love their vision. Like, I basically every single Wachowski movie I will unapologetically adore. Movies like Cloud Atlas, that are like more hated than the Matrix trilogy or the Matrix sequels, is a movie I just love so much, and I like these movies a lot too. But like, I can also understand that they just don't work. And we talked about that for hours, why they don't work. So I'm not going to restart that conversation. But yeah, I understand your hesitance. Is it going to be more like the first one? Is it going to be more like the last one? I don't know. I think even if it doesn't work, I'm still excited to see what they have to say. That's why I'm excited, because I do think, I with trailers today, you can never tell. Like it's very possible that the Neo thinks he's crazy scenes are only like the first 20 minutes of the movie. And that's like, it seems like that's what's going to be the movie about, but it's really not. That's just like the first act, and then we're going to move to something else. I don't know. But even if that is only the first act of the movie, I'm really into this idea that it's exploring those things specifically. Like it's exploring the idea. And obviously there's a shot in the movie that is not so subtle social commentary where Neo's standing on an elevator and everyone around him has their face in a phone. And there's a wonderful like use of a mirror on top of the elevator to like reflect those people down. So like there's multiples of them all with their faces in the phones. And like there's a lot of mirrors going on in this trailer. He's doing a lot of Neo staring into a lot of mirrors in one way or another. Yeah. And so I think the Wachowskis, or sorry, not the Wachowskis, Lana is using mirrors very specifically in a lot of this imagery. So I think there's going to be some like, one of the big things about the Matrix, and sorry, I'm talking a lot and I'll let you talk, but one of the big things about the Matrix was this idea that like, it was 1999. It was the peak of American civilization, and even we can even acknowledge that our idea of like what it means to live in this world changed pretty dramatically not long after that. And so what does the Matrix look like if the Matrix is what we're living in right now, right? Like what happened? like what and I think there's a lot of really interesting things to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is like, even if I don't like enjoy the movie as much as I would hope to, it'll be something that will engender a ton of fascinating conversations. Yeah, I think you're exactly right that there's probably a sense in which this movie is a soft reboot because of the fact that we have Thomas Anderson in the Matrix, doesn't know what the Matrix is, meets Trinity, meets a guy who looks like Morpheus, has a fight in a dojo looking place, etc., mirrors, White Rabbit, right? But it's not just a soft reboot of like, it's the Matrix again. Remember the Matrix? It's like what you just said, making a direct connection to the ways in which we have all been sucked into the Matrix. Yeah. So that could be very fun.
I mean, I guess my final most optimistic take is that both Lily and Lana worked on this series 20 years ago, and they walked away. They were done. They told the stories they wanted to tell, and they were done. So something that Lana wanted to say brought her back, and I'm really interested to see what that is.
Yeah, me too. I have some ideas. I have some theories about what like the plot is, but I kind of don't want to share them in case they're right, and then everybody will be mad at me for spoiling.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to do a show on this this movie when it comes out. So
yeah. Awesome.
It's very exciting. It's a wild time to be alive. Everything's coming back, but in ways that excite me. I think like there was probably a version of me a few years ago that would have rolled my eyes at this and been like, God, we're just reliving. We're just going to reboot and leg a sequel. And I just don't care anymore, man. I'm just, let's just do it. Let's just do it.
Yeah. I don't like the fact that I'm being cynical and whiny about it. Like I just feel burned from just having watched The Matrix 2 and be literally still feeling the disappointment of that experience of, I hope it's great. I hope that I have to eat my words.
Well, we will find out in December of 2021 when we, of course, will both go to the theater to see this movie, regardless of how safe it is.
Regardless, come hell or high water, literally in this case, I guess.
Yeah. All right, Matt, that is going to do it for us this week, I think. As I said already, if you want to reach out to us about our feelings on Groundhog Day and your feelings on Groundhog Day, or if you just want to let us know what you thought of that Matrix trailer, you can reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, on Twitter @doofmedia, on Reddit, on our subreddit r/doofmedia, or you can follow us on our Instagram account that's @doofmedia.
That's right. And if you're not already subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to click that button and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
And of course, you can find this and all of our shows over at our website, doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. Head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia, and you can join the council that decides what movies are brought forth. So if you were like, Groundhog Day, what? I wanted you to do Happy Death Day instead, you can make that happen.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And Matt, this episode is coming out on Friday, the 17th. You know what else is happening on Friday, the 17th?
What?
It's time for our monthly Doof and Chill session, which is a bonus patron exclusive thing that we do every month where we hang out with our patrons for a couple of hours, play games, do silly things, just have some fun interacting with our patrons. The reason I'm bringing this up, Matt, is because this week we're doing something a little different.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Thank you for pretending like you don't know what I'm talking about. You're doing real good, Bill Murray. This month, we're going to do something called Twitch watch parties. Basically, what happens is Twitch is owned by Amazon, so you are allowed to link your Twitch account with your Amazon account, and then you can watch things that are available on Amazon Prime on Twitch while you are streaming. And so basically, if you, a listener, have your Amazon account connected to your Twitch account, when I press play on the thing, it will play on my screen and will also play on your screen, and you will get to hear me and Matt talk about the thing while you're watching it. How exciting is that?
This is going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah. So Matt and I think a few other of our Doof partners are going to appear on Twitch at 9:30 p.m. Central Time on Friday night, and we're going to watch the first 2 episodes of the Amazon Prime original animated superhero series Invincible. We're going to watch those first 2 episodes, and we're going to chat about it while we're watching it, and we're going to chat about it after we're watching it for a little bit as well. So if you are at all interested in doing that, make sure you follow us on our Twitch account. It's how does Twitch do it? I think it's just like twitch.tv/doofmedia. Follow us there so you can know when we go live, and make sure if you have a Prime account and you have a Twitch account that you link those bad boys together so it will work. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a really fun sounding idea, and I hear people like it, so it'll be good.
And that Invincible show is something that both you and I have watched and enjoyed, so I think it's going to be fun to chat with people about it.
Awesome.
All right, well, that is going to do it for us this week. I don't actually, Matt, I don't know what we're doing next week. I didn't actually plan that far ahead.
No, this never happens.
Do we want to start deconstructing Cameron next week? Do we want to? Has it been long enough since our last deconstructing series?
I mean, I'm hankering for some Cameron, so
all right,
I'm down for it.
I guess next week we're going to begin our next deconstructing director series with director James Cameron, and the first movie. Do you even know, Matt? Do you even know?
Is it the Piranhas movie?
It is. It is. James Cameron's very first film is a movie called Piranhas 2: The Spawning.
God, I'm so excited because I haven't seen this movie.
Yeah, I haven't either. And we'll find out if we needed to see Piranhas 1, which I don't think I saw either. I have a sneaking suspicion I did not need to see Piranha 1.
I think we'll be all right, actually.
So next week, Deconstructing Cameron begins. Go out, watch Piranha 2, and join us next week. We'll see you folks then.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.